The Aztecs were an American Indian people who ruled a successful empire during the 1400s and early 1500s. Their civilization was based around the Valley of Mexico, an oval basin about 7,500 feet above sea level. They were located at such a high altitude that their climate was mild despite their tropical surroundings. Their emperors were thought to have had human and supernatural powers along with their political power. Their society consisted of four main classes, including the nobles, commoners, serfs, and slaves. Commoners occupied most of the population and made a living by farming. They're called polyplots. Serfs worked the land held by the nobles and remained on the land even if the land switched owners. Slaves were considered property, but their children, luckily, were born free. They captured most of their slaves in war. Religion played an important role in their lives. Their religious activities included praying, singing, dancing, pilgrimages, sacrifice, and offerings. They had many gods and goddesses, and each one ruled one or more human activities or aspects of nature. They held many religious ceremonies, and human and animal sacrifice played a vital role in these ceremonies. Human bodies and living things were viewed as gifts from the gods, and the sacrifice ceremonies could be very extreme, sometimes including the slashing open of the chests of living victims and tearing out their hearts.
Each man holds a limb, while a fifth lifts an obsidian knife high in the air. With one searing move, he slashes it through her chest and extracts her still beating heart.
The Aztecs had a 260-day religious calendar and a 365-day solar calendar, 18 months of 20 days plus 5 extra days. A typical household consisted of a husband and wife, their unmarried kids, and a number of the husband's relatives. All members of the household helped with the work, and the husband's responsibility was to support the family, and the wife had typical household duties. Boys were educated by their father until the age of 10, and then they went to school. Some girls would attend schools also, but learn most of their household skills at home. Women married at an early age, usually at around the age of 16, and men at about 20. The Aztec diet consisted of many types of corn and squash, and tortillas to scoop up other foods and wrap them around meat and vegetables to form tacos. They ate lots of spicy food and flavored many of their dishes with chili peppers. They got protein from fishing and hunting, and their game animals included deer, rabbits, birds, ducks, and geese. Aztec fashion was typical to other civilizations at the time. Women typically wore loose, sleeveless blouses with wraparound skirts. Men wore cloth around their hips and a cloak which they knotted over one shoulder. Poor people used cloth made from magui fibers, but the more wealthy citizens used cotton. Typically, the more embellished the clothing was, the more wealthy the wearer. Agriculture was the center of their economy. Corn was their most important crop, but they also grew avocados, beans, squash, sweet potatoes, cotton, papayas, rubber, cacao beans, tomatoes, and much more. Farmers used the slash-and-burn agricultural practice in some areas and terraced hillsides in the others. They dug irrigation systems to water their crops and turned shallow lakes into cropland by scooping up mud and forming islands. These islands were called chinampas, and they frequently added more mud. This land was very fertile and they could grow huge crops. The marketplace was the major center of Aztec life. They had no system of money as we know it, but traded their goods and services in the same way. They only used wheels on toys, never for transportation of goods. People carried most of their goods by foot, but also used canoes in the rivers and lakes in the Valley of Mexico. In 1519, Hernan Cortes landed on the eastern coast of Mexico. He marched into the Aztec capital and joined up with the Indians who hated the Aztecs. The Aztec ruler confronted them with religious magic instead of military force as they came into the capital. Little Aztec architecture remains standing today as the Spaniards considered it their duty to wipe out all temples, idols, sacrifices, and other traces of Aztec religion.